Hello and welcome to TVB News. Chief Executive Carrie Lam said more details about the relaxation of social distancing measures and school resumption plans will be announced within this coming week. This after the city's daily COVID tally dipped below 2,000 for the first time in nearly 2 months. As the city's pandemic situation appears to be easing, crowds could be seen throughout Hong Kong this weekend. That's even before the government's three-phase relaxation of social distancing curbs gets underway on April 21st. Chief Executive Carrie Lam said more details about the plan will be unveiled within this coming week.
By and large, unless there was an exponential surge, otherwise we would continue to implement the relaxation. But the relaxation will be gradual.
Earlier, the government revealed the first stage involves the reopening of gyms, beauty parlors and religious venues, as well as the relaxation of dine-in hours to 10 p.m. and the number of patrons per table rising to 4. The private gathering ban of more than 2 households will be lifted as well. As for in-person classes, the government is assessing whether students should be COVID screened via rapid tests daily or every other day. This, as she says, only 60% of the students have been vaccinated. Meanwhile, the 3-day voluntary testing exercises have drawn to a close. Many people said they followed the government's advice for the sake of getting some peace of mind. But not everyone did so, like this boy who said that's because it's voluntary in nature. Despite that, the city's leader believes the scheme is effective at unearthing infections.
It's not a question of whether we are competent or not. By definition, an exercise of this nature will not be able to come up with a figure on how many Hong Kong residents have taken the test. But anecdotal evidence suggests that many have. We surf the Facebook of different groups and the social media and so on.
The city's leader said the full effect of the testing exercise will become clearer on Tuesday. But for the earlier proposed compulsory COVID screening campaign, Lam said more factors must be considered before rebooting the scheme. Hong Kong reported 1,921 new COVID cases today. It's the first dip below 2,000 and the lowest daily case count in 2 months. Some 1,000 cases were self-diagnoses via rapid test kits. There are also 18 imported cases. Meanwhile, public hospitals reported 53 COVID patients aged between 62 and 104 died yesterday. The youngest patient suffered from colorectal cancer. Meanwhile, the authorities reminded the public it is unnecessary to report their test results unless they test positive.
So this platform is not for reporting of negative results. People, when they go up to our website, they need to, there will be a pop-up box reminding them, and also they need to verify that they are tested positive with 2 lines on the RAT kits before they start to report.
And one day after John Lee officially announced his intention to run in the upcoming chief executive election, he has already garnered more than 200 nominations from members of the election committee. Meanwhile, Lee announced he will mostly be campaigning online, citing social distancing restrictions. Kip Long has details.
This afternoon, John Lee arrived at the Central Plaza in Wan Chai, where he has set up his campaign headquarters. He thanked members of the election committee for their support, adding that he will take into consideration their ideas as he works on his political platform. But in view of anti-epidemic measures, he said most of his meetings with them and other campaign activities will be conducted online. So far, Lee has received more than 200 nominations from election committee members, including former Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying and members from the business sector. Several civil servant organizations also issued a statement expressing their support for Lee. Speaking to TVB News, Tam Yu-chung, director of Lee's campaign office, expects Lee to announce his election platform in late April. Tam, who is also the city's sole delegate to the National People's Congress Standing Committee, added that the platform will not be a detailed one because of the limited time available. Tam stressed that Lee has outlined his ways to govern, which include taking on a results-oriented approach. Tam also explained why Lee decided to campaign mostly online when the government has decided to exempt CE hopefuls from the ban on public gatherings. In fact, Tam said each individual campaign event would still require the approval of the Chief Secretary for Administration. As Johnny has already resigned from that position and an acting official has yet to be named, there is actually no one in place to approve Lee's campaign events. Later in the afternoon, the government issued a press release stating that the Chief Secretary vacancy will not impede the work of the SAR government. Referring to the power delegated to the Chief Secretary in granting CE election candidates exemptions, the release said when no person has been appointed to discharge the functions of that office, the Chief Executive may order the holder of another public office to exercise such power. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Labor and Welfare Chief Lochie Wan says ratcheting up the number of subsidized places in elderly care homes and improving their quality will be front and center in the city's development of elderly care services. On his blog, Law wrote there would be more contract homes in the future. They are elderly facilities run by operators with services monitored by the government and subsidized places offered to senior residents. Low-quality licensed private homes will be gradually phased out. This as Law revealed the government's plan to amend laws to set minimum service requirements for private operators of elderly homes. The stress levels of Hong Kong students sitting the upcoming Diploma of Secondary Education examination are at an all-time high amid the pandemic. That's according to the latest study by Hok Yao Club. In January, the student counseling group polled around 2,100 candidates. Around 500 more candidates were surveyed last month. On average, students rated their stress levels at around 7.16 out of 10 back in January. But the level rose to 7.87 in late March. That's a historic high since the survey was launched in 2012. Some 90% of the respondents said they were physically and mentally exhausted. 87% of them found it hard to focus on their work and with less motivation to study. Po Xing, the group's student guidance consultant, says it is likely due to the pandemic-induced uncertainty compounded by a more compact exam schedule this year. The Customs and Excise Department seized a total of 700 kilograms of methamphetamine with an estimated street value of $400 million. That's the largest drug bust of its kind in the department's history. Customs officers intercepted shipments declared as electric transformers from Mexico at the airport on March 18th. After inspection, officers found 447 kilograms of suspected liquid methamphetamine hidden inside 3 transformers. The drugs have an estimated value of $260 million. After further investigation, officers seized another 253 kilograms of suspected meth at the Shengshui warehouse, valued at $150 million. So far, 2 arrests have been made. Voting is underway in France's presidential election, with up to 48 million eligible voters choosing between 12 candidates. The front-runners are President Emmanuel Macron and far-right candidate Marine Le Pen. Unless someone gets more than 50% of the vote nationwide, there will be a runoff election between the top 2 candidates on April 25th. For months, it looked like Macron, a centrist, was a shoe-in to become France's first president in 20 years to win a second term. But that scenario blurred recently as the pain of inflation in food and energy prices roared back as a dominant election theme for many low-income households. And that could drive voters to the far-right leader, Le Pen. Australia is set to hold a general election on May 21st. That's announced by Prime Minister Scott Morrison today. The move will trigger a campaign expected to be fought over cost of living pressures, climate change, and questions of trust and competence of the major parties. Morrison played up economic uncertainties and security threats in announcing the election. He said this was not the time to hand the reins to the untested opposition Labour leader Anthony Albanese.
This election And this campaign is incredibly important because there is so much at stake for Australia and our future. This election is about you, no one else. It's about our country and it's about its future. It's a choice between a strong future and an uncertain one. It's a choice between a government you know and a Labor opposition that you don't. Our government is not perfect. We've never claimed to be. But we are up front. And you may see some flaws, but you can also see what we have achieved for Australia in incredibly difficult times.
Thank you for watching.